How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today I bring you some good news and common sense. Transgender women have been banned from competing against biological women in swimming events across the world. Now, this ban does not include all swimming events. I'll talk about that a little bit later, nor does it exclude all trans people. But for the most part, you're not going to be able to be like Leah Thomas, who identified as a male up until the senior year in college when they were at UPenn in the pool swimming against men as a man. And then in the very last year, you decide to become a woman and compete against the women, breaking records. And no, that's not going to happen anymore, at least not on the global stage. This is common sense, although some don't like it. Why would you be against it if you're thinking about science and reality? Now, before I go really far into it, let's roll the clip. In this clip, you're going to see and hear the decision from FINA, which is the International Swimming Federation. It's called FINA because it's French and the F goes first. But anyway, after we get done watching that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what was said there. Then I give you the rest of my 2 cents and my deep detail analysis. And then I wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
The new rules would mean that in order to compete in women's swimming, a trans athlete would have to complete their transition before the age of 12. This rule means college swimmer Leah Thomas, the first trans athlete to win an NCAA Division I swimming title and who had hoped to compete in the Olympics against biological female athletes, will not be allowed to do so. FINA, the international body that governs water sports, says the move will balance inclusivity and ensure no one has an unfair advantage.
We have to protect the right of all our athletes to compete. But we also have to protect competitive fairness at our events, especially women's competition, and also the past record and achievement of the women.
FINA says this new gender inclusion policy will require trans swimmers to provide proof that their transition started before they went through puberty and that they have continued to suppress testosterone levels in order to compete, a move that 4-time female Olympian Kate Campbell says will ensure competitiveness.
It is my hope that young girls all around the world can continue to dream of becoming Olympic and world champions in a female category, prioritising the competitive cornerstone of fairness.
More than 70% of FINA members voted for the new rules, with just 15% voting no and 13% choosing not to vote. New rules also hitting the cycling world. Thursday, the International Cycling Union increased the time that transgender athletes must remain with low testosterone levels and lowered the maximum accepted level of testosterone to compete as a woman.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, first and foremost, bravo to FINA for making a good decision. I think it was 71% of the people voted specifically for this thing. And there were some that didn't vote, some that voted against it, some that just weren't there, whatever it is. But 71% of the people over at FINA said, no, we're not going to have transgender women in the pool with biological women. And notice how they didn't just say trans people, because you never, ever see a trans man compete against men. You never see that. You always see a Leah Thomas, somebody 6'4", big giant hands, crazy hip motion, big size 18 feet in the pool or on a long jump on the basketball court, something like that against biological women. Why? Because they have an advantage biologically, and it's not fair. It's not fair. Women should be able to compete against themselves on an even playing field, right? They have the same pool of biological possibilities as a woman. You have your XX chromosomes. You should be able to compete against people who have the same XX chromosomes as you. This whole thing about, you got to be on testosterone and all this and that. No, that's not going to make your bones be smaller. All right, you Leah Thomas, when you were William, you were 6'4", 200 and something pounds, maybe probably about like 180. You're this big dude, big crazy hands. That testosterone or whatever you're going to be on, it's not going to make those features any smaller. You might lose some muscle, but you still got your skeleton. You still got that big giant cranium. I mean, come on, what are we doing? This just made common sense. there's no need to block the trans men from competing against the men because they have no advantage. They're going to be at a disadvantage. But if you are a trans woman, you are at an advantage. Everyone knows that men, taller, stronger, faster, we are the more physically dominant of the, of our species, basically, between men and women. Everybody knows that. Now, does that mean that men are just better than women and women are trash? No, it doesn't. It just means we're different. There are some things that men cannot do that women can do, okay? Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this happen, but if you ever seen this happen, I will PayPal you all the tea in China, right? You've never in your life seen a biological male give birth or menstruate. It is impossible. It's not possible. Where is baby coming out? How is baby stored? What uterus and vagina and whatnot does a man have? You might be able to make some kind of cosmetic stuff going on, but it ain't gonna produce no baby. Two men cannot create a baby. A man cannot give birth to a baby. A man can't menstruate. A man cannot do things that a woman can do, and vice versa. We're different. We're not better or worse. We're complementary, like yin and yang, but different story. I digress. Now, what are the caveats here? Well, you can be a trans person and compete against women, but you had to have transitioned before the age of 12. Now, that right there is crazy, okay? Because you talking about puberty blockers, hormone blockers. I said this 2 years ago on Jubilee, talking about Dwayne Wade's son, and people said, oh, I'm tripping, and I got a 10-4 hat on. That's a crazy Trump supporter. And I was like, yo, they putting these little kids on puberty blockers, hormone blockers, things of that nature. So who'll be the first Munchausen by proxy syndrome parent who has hoop dreams for their child or swimming dreams or baseball, whatever it is, some kind of athletic aspiration for their child, and they want to live vicariously through them? Who's going to be the first one to put their child on puberty blockers at the age of 8 because they want them to go dominate against women? It's going to happen. It's going to happen, which is why you shouldn't be allowed to do that to begin with. First of all, your child may come to you and say, hey, you know what? I'm a girl. But kids say the darndest things, don't they? It doesn't mean that they're right or that they should just be listened to and be like, okay, yeah, you're a girl now, little Trevor, little Grayson, yeah, you're a girl. How about I'm the parent and you're not going to become a girl. If you want to become 18, you want to strike out on your own and just explore your life, and you decide you want to be like the Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, whatever you want to call it. You want to be like Magic Johnson's son. You want to be like Zaya Wade or whatever. That's your business at that point. But when you're here under my roof, no, there are rules. Some of the rules are, hey, when the street lights come on, you come inside. Don't take your bike anywhere. Don't leave it without a chain on it. Don't go in the grocery store and steal stuff. And also, don't try to become a girl. Don't go to the doctor trying to get pills to suppress your gender. Because maybe you're going through a phase. You could be confused. Some of these boys, they're around a bunch of women, or they just see certain things. It could have been a traumatic experience that happened to them. And we already know what that is. I don't got to go down that road. We know what's going on with some of these Catholic priests and everything else. But anyway, they're confused. They're going through a tough time. That does not mean that they want to become something else. Maybe, just maybe, they need to work through their trauma. How about go to a therapist? How about that? Rather than saying, change your gender, chop your stuff off, and take puberty blockers because you're dealing with some kind of mental problem. You see, gender dysphoria used to be a mental problem, really. It used to be in a DSM, and you could be able to treat it, maybe with some therapy, talking to somebody, or try to figure out a way to work through it. But now we say, okay, you feel like you're a woman and you're 8 years old. All right, cool. You're a woman. How does it make any sense? You can't even get a tattoo on your arm under the age of 18. You can't smoke cigarettes, drink beer, get a tattoo, or anything like that. You can't vote, but you could change your gender. Isn't changing your gender a little bit more important and even more permanent than getting a tattoo? If you get compound chicken right here on your arm or on your forehead, you can get that covered up. You can get it lasered off or whatever. But if you take puberty blockers, And the effects of that linger on. You can't just reverse that. Now you got a physical injury for the rest of your life. So, yeah, this whole thing with the trans athletes, this is a good decision. Although it's not going to affect the NCAA. That's one thing I wanted to say. It'll only affect the Olympics and also like world championships. So there's an event called the Masters, not the golf tournament, but it's like a swimming event. So things like that are going to be affected. Things that are under the jurisdiction of FINA, but the NCAA is not. So Leah Thomas would be affected if, well, let me just back up a little bit. Leah Thomas actually graduated, right? So this won't affect Leah Thomas anyway, even if it did affect the NCAA, because Leah Thomas is not in school anymore. But Thomas had aspirations to go to the Olympics. That's not going to happen. Not as a woman, it's not going to happen. Now, maybe if you take the wig off or cut your hair or keep the same hair, keep the same Bret the Hitman Hart hairstyle and just compete with the men. If you're good enough, you could compete with the men and make the Olympics perhaps. But I don't think that's going to happen, because even before all this transition and stuff, he was not good enough as William to compete with the men at UPenn. So if you couldn't compete at UPenn at your own school against the men, how are you going to compete on the Olympic level as a man? Your only hope, Leah Thomas, was to become a woman and compete against them. Very unfair. Very unfair, but now we have some common sense coming from the world stage to say this is ridiculous and it should end right now. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about this decision to ban trans women specifically from competing against biological women on the international stage, Olympics, world championships, etc.? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. This is the correct decision. It should be made at the NCAA level as well. And I hope there are certain laws passed and make it a felony to give a child puberty blockers. Why would you do that? Why would you try to play God like that? Let the child have puberty. That's what it's supposed to do. Just like the whole thing with Dwayne Wade's son. Maybe when Dwayne Wade was 7, 8 years old, he felt kind of soft. He was kind of small frame, had a weak voice or whatever. But then when puberty hits, all of a sudden he's 6'8" now and big and strong and eating everything in the house and deep voice. He's going to feel different. He's going to feel different. So, this is just a crime against humanity. That should end right now. Aside from the competition, aside from the sports, leave them kids alone. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.